Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and it's around the middle of November 2019, and I thought it was time for another one of those garden tours. I've not been able to do these for the last couple weeks because the weather's just been so horrendous every weekend. Just too windy, too rainy to film, or of course there's some other thing. I think last Saturday was a nice day, but I was doing something else. Anyway, so here we are, and this ridiculous, outrageous sort of setup here is just my trying to deal with the excessive wind, and hopefully the sound quality isn't so bad that I have to throw all this footage away. So anyway, here we are at the garden tour, brought to you by my sponsor, Vessi Seeds. Almost all the seeds in my garden this year are provided by Vessi Seeds. If you want to help support the channel and you need something for your garden that they sell, buy from them. Check the description box for this video, or any of my videos really, for the 2019 coupon code. You can use that to buy things on their online store, and you get free shipping for everything except something big, like big heavy thing. The details are in the description box. So with no further ado, let's go have a look around the garden. Let me show you what's going on, and the big plans, and just general random thoughts that come to mind as I sort of walk you through things. Okay, let's get started. So I'm doing the tour kind of in reverse. Literally, I'm going to walk backwards through it. I normally am facing the opposite direction, this direction, but because of the wind, I need my back to the wind to make this doable, as you can tell probably from the sound of the wind right now. So we're going to go in reverse, and so here's the hugelkultur beds outside the garden enclosure, and they're all completely mulched and they're all shut down, and there's a good I don't know, 6 to 8 inches of leaves on these, and as you can tell, this one this would have happened very recently. There was a deer in here. I can see the prints, right? And if you go up the hill, there's the prints right there, right? Almost like a mountain goat. Up he went, or she. I don't know, can't tell from looking at those whether it's a male or female. So yeah, so nothing growing here, but we're all well mulched and put down for the season. As we go in on this side of the garden, I still have kale. I don't know that it's growing, but it's maintaining. So looking around my garden here, you can see if you look over here that there's a bit of snow on the ground. This was all completely covered yesterday, and it was about -5 Celsius. We had a whole bunch of snow this week, and it's just indicative of the kind of weather we'll have this year. So I think this week that went by, just this past week, we had a high of 12 degrees Celsius, and we had a low of like -9 or -10 Celsius, all within the same week. Actually, I think that range of temperatures might have been within 24 hours, right? And yeah, when you're in a coastal region, that sort of thing can happen. So for those of you thinking, oh my goodness, it's so much warmer where you are, and it may well be, right? But yeah, if it's covered in snow where you are, and there's less snow here, it's not because it's particularly warm, it's just because the temperature is so variable. So there was one day this week where the day before it was going to freeze, and I came outside after work with a headlamp and made sure to cover up all the beds. So for those of you that follow my channel all the time, I've been hoarding leaves all fall, and those 2 bags are the only leaves I have left. I think one of my viewers asked me recently, how much leaves should I have? How much? I don't think there's any upper limit. It's a question of whether you can store it, and you don't want your property to look like a hoarder's property. But I probably had about at least 30 bags here at one point, right? Just me picking them up, throwing them in the back of my car on the way home from work. That's all that's left, and those are for one particular bed. I'll show you that as we go through it here. But anyway, I think it's important to get the mulch when you're doing your fall mulch, to get all those things on before the ground freezes, because it'll just keep the ground from freezing that much longer. So I still got some kale growing here, and you can see the Swiss chard in this bed here has had the tar kicked out of it. It's done. I left it just to see. People are always saying Swiss chard's tough. It's not as tough as kale, not even close. It just kind of goes all jelly-like and liquefies. There is Swiss chard underneath this dome here, and it looks like it's doing okay, but I mean, if we keep having, you know, -10 type nights, it's not going to be all right. Yeah, I can pop the lid off and show you. Of course, that doesn't want to come off. Right, there we go. Yeah, so I mean, the Swiss chard's still underneath this dome. It's all right. It's really not growing though. I mean, I put this dome on them like a month ago, and I don't really notice much difference in the size of the Swiss chard. It seems to just be kind of maintaining. But anyway, I thought I'd leave the dome on all winter and see what happens. So continuing to walk in reverse on the left hand side of the garden. I'm just mulching. I'm using whatever I can find. Spruce boughs and leaves. I like to put the leaves down, the spruce boughs on top. That's the system I'm kind of working with this year, because that's what I've got. I mean, I use hay, I've used seaweed. My motto is use whatever is easy to get. You know, whatever you can get for free and it's easy to get. So there's been years I've used spoiled stable hay. Love it. There's been years I've used, you know, raked lawn grass. Love that. This is basically, you know, from someone's yard waste. Looks like someone mowed down a septic field from the size of it. Very weedy stuff. This is all garlic. This bed's all garlic for next year, and Egyptian walking onion. This bed's mulched. This was where I had the eggplant and broccolini. Wonderful stuff. This bed's all mulched. One of these, I think this is another garlic bed. This is sort of like that way is north, so the stuff on the sort of north side of the garden, of course, still has snow, right? You can see the rest of the garden, there's not hardly any snow, not nearly as much, right? That's just, it just doesn't get quite as good sun because it's closer to the forest edge there. This bed has carrots in it. I put the dome on to keep the carrots from freezing, so I could continue to harvest them. Not because I like coming out in the winter and harvesting carrots all winter. I just literally haven't gotten around to getting them out of the ground. I prefer to harvest them all and just have them in a box in a cold room, which for me is my garage. It just happens to be the right temperature to function like a cold room. And actually, I just noticed this one has a hole in it, so it's definitely not going to hold the heat as well. But anyway, the general idea is that the plastic dome will keep the soil from freezing to some extent. I mean, if it gets really cold and really dark and we don't get a lot of sunny days, it'll freeze regardless of the dome. But anyway, at least for December it should be okay, and I plan to get those out, you know, I don't know, maybe even tomorrow if the weather's nice. It's supposed to rain today, so I'm trying to get this video done before it gets too bad. Likewise over here, I got some parsnips in this bed, so I got the dome just to keep that from freezing so I can get them out. I got some salsify underneath this. This is like a plastic square. You can see the salsify foliage underneath there. Looks like almost like eelgrass. So those still have to come out. I just put the dome on this bed to put the dome somewhere. There's nothing growing under it. This is where I had beans last year. Over here, I did a video a little while ago on you know, cutting down my raspberry canes. And so along this wall, there's grapes over there, and this is all raspberries. And these are the ever-bearing raspberries. And I did the experiment this year, just cutting them down to ground in late November, because that's supposed to solve a problem with them. I'm not going to go into the details of why I did that. Before you write a treatise on this video's comment section, watch that video and you'll understand why I cut them down to the ground, because people that know about raspberries might say you can't cut those down to the ground, but it depends on the variety. So with this variety, it's supposed to be okay, and it's an experiment, so you can follow along next year and see how it works. Here we've got asparagus, and I just cut all the asparagus stalks down and threw some spruce boughs over that. Actually, I still have to finish mulching that properly. The rest of this bed is strawberries. I mulched strawberries with spruce boughs. I actually mulched all my strawberry beds with spruce boughs. Here's another one with spruce boughs. I don't know, this is just mulch. There's nothing planted here for next year. Still got a couple kale going on here. Over here, this is garlic. A couple kohlrabi left there. I'm just using them up in soups. They're kind of shot, but they're still functional in soups. And for various reasons, I think I'm going to take a break from kohlrabi next year, mainly because no one in the house really likes it, and we only use it in soup. And there's lots of other things you can use in soup besides kohlrabi. I just like growing it because I get such big kohlrabi. These are almost the size of a volleyball. Still got some of this kale. This bed needs to be mulched, and this weekend that'll have to happen because the soil's not frozen. It's thawed. It was frozen, but it's thawed out because yesterday it was like -5 when I woke up, and by 9 o'clock p.m. in the dark it actually warmed up because there was just a warm breeze coming off the ocean. So I still have some kale here, and I think I want to pick all of this today if the weather permits, and mulch this bed and shut the bed down for the winter, because I pretty much got all my beds shut down for the winter, just one or two still outstanding. This strawberry bed is mulched with spruce boughs, and so is this one. I did a whole video on that, so if you're interested, I'm not gonna, I mean, you can ask me questions, sure, but yeah, if you want to know why I did that, why I think it's a good idea, and how I went about it, and so on and so forth, I did a whole video on mulching my strawberry beds with spruce boughs. This bed here, I've got the last of the carrots that I grew in this bed are under this little box. Again, just another way to keep the soil from freezing. One thing I haven't mentioned in previous videos, I did a really makeshift haphazard sort of greenhouse, I guess. So I have Vietnamese coriander growing underneath this plastic, and I thought if I just put a double layer of some old poly and put a little, just a stick in the center to make it dome-like, and put some rocks around it, maybe the Vietnamese coriander would survive the winter. It's a zone 11 perennial, and I'm in zone 6, so it's a bit of a stretch, but I know someone in town here who had like just the right conditions, a south-facing wall next to a house, and they didn't cover their Vietnamese coriander at all, and it survived the winter. I know you can put it in a pot and bring it in and so on and so forth, but I really only have one south-facing window in my house, and it doesn't have much of a sill, and it's the dining room window, and I just don't want that covered in plants, and most importantly, my wife doesn't want it covered in plants. So people are always, there's things I do where I leave things out, and they say, oh, I bring them in pots. If I had the right house for that, a nice sort of room with a good window and space and so on and so forth, I'd do more of that. But it's fun to do the experiment of leaving things out and see if you can trick them into thinking they're enduring a winter in a warmer climate. So that's just what's going on here. Vietnamese coriander, great stuff. I got I dried out a whole bunch of it, and I got it all put away in a jar. So I basically have a source of coriander all winter, which is not an essential thing, but it's nice when you're on fajita night or Taco Tuesday or whatever. It's nice to have that for your guac or your salsa or whatever you like it in. What else we got going on here? This bed, actually this strawberry bed, this is strawberries, but it's sort of companion planted with blueberry bushes and this apple tree, this sad apple tree. Anyway, which, look at this, one of those windstorms we had, the branch broke, just one, and this is unsalvageable. There's no way to bring this tree back. I have to cut that off clean. I should do it soon. One more reason not to buy these trees that have 4 or 5 varieties grafted onto them. So that branch is one variety. So whatever that is, I don't know if it's Honeycrisp or Jonah Gold or Macintosh or whatever that branch is, the game's over for that variety on this tree. Right? And that's the problem with buying those trees. I got these at a hardware store a number of years ago. I will never buy the multi-variety trees again. I think I like just having, for me, especially in terms of options for pruning, you're better off having, 3 or 4 or 5 trees, and each tree being different, and choosing trees that bloom at the same time so that they will cross-pollinate properly. This tree that was blown down in Hurricane Dorian, it seems to be doing okay. I still have it tethered, but I'm going to remove that tether soon. I just thought I'd leave it up until the really, really violent fall weather was over, and it's still not over. Just this past week we had 100-kilometer-hour winds, and my roof is missing. I'm just looking at it right now, and this side of the house alone is missing at least a dozen shingles. And one of these weekends we get a nice sunny Saturday, I got to get up there to replace those, but that is something I'm not dying to do. But anyway, this tree seems to be doing okay, and we'll see. It was bent right, it had fallen right down. So hopefully it'll give me a decent yield next year. People have asked me some questions about the cold frames. I don't have anything going on in the cold frames, and for various reasons I'll explain as we go here. But yeah, I didn't bother. I actually did plant. I sowed spinach in this one on the 1st of October, and it never even germinated. So yeah, I got a plan for this whole area of the garden, but I'll discuss it when I can get a more sort of aerial view, I guess would make sense. Yeah, anyway, the rest of this is just mulched, and outside the garden enclosure everything's mulched and put down. I got 2 beds of garlic out here that are all ready for next year, and I'll plant it and everything. So that's where the garden is. Now let me talk about these cold frames a little. I guess I have to do it from this angle because of this damn wind. But I'll splice in some footage later on. But if you look at the garden from overhead, I've got, let's say 80% of the garden is inside this fenced enclosure, and then the rest is outside. And so I got a door to get in and out, and I got these cold frames against the sort of north end of this garden. And then I've got all these weird sort of no man's land type thing. I don't think it uses the space very well, and I'm utterly unimpressed with the results I'm getting with these cold frames. And I know before people write about this that they're not the best design of cold frame. The front should be a bit lower, but I don't think that's the main problem. I just think I should literally just don't like them being stationary. I love these domes. I mean, basically any bed I put a dome over is a cold frame when there's a dome there. I like the optionality of that. I like the flexibility of that. I like that I don't have to grow specific things in any one bed. I can just, wherever I decide to pop one of those things, I can do it. And I do not like being constrained to having to only grow my heat-loving things here, or only grow my fall crops here, or whatever. And by the way, they're so small, you really can't grow a lot of stuff in them anyway. It's almost like more of a hobby to me. The amount of greens you can grow in there, you harvest them so much faster than they regrow, especially this time of year. So let's say each of these beds was full of kale. That would be like a week's worth of kale. Each bed might be a week's worth of kale for my family. So I'd have 3 weeks worth of kale, and then it'd be over. So let's say I'd spent the fall growing kale, I'd have kale for December. So to me that's not worth it, because I already have kale for December because it holds just fine out here. But from somewhere in November onward, there's nothing growing in here. I just don't, and I know people are going to argue, and if it works where you are, that's great. But you can tell by the weather outside, it's overcast, right? I just do not get a lot of sunny days here, and these sort of microclimates need sun. So it's not the length of the day, it's the kind of sun, like the intensity of sun, the sunniness, to put it that way. So a foggy day when it's cold is just, the cold frame doesn't add much value in that state. I think I can use this, the point, I guess, to back up a little bit and get rid of that quagmire of an argument. I think I can use this space a lot better by removing the fence and adding more beds I think from that bed outside the frame to this bed here, it's about maybe 10 feet. So I think I can put the 6-foot beds all the way down here. And these cold frames just happen to be 6 feet wide. So I'm just going to take them apart, split them, so each one of these will become 2 beds basically, and put them in line with these ones going up the hill. And then I'll have like a small dome I can pop over any one of these and make it into a cold frame, right? A temporary modular cold frame whenever I want. So I'm still using cold frames in a sense, but I'm getting this optionality, and I think it's just a better use of the space. But to do that, I have to remove all these fence posts, unhook the fence, and then I have to bring the fence all the way around the outside enclosure. Right, so that's a bit of work, and I'd like to get it done before total freeze up, but I have to. It's a bit of work, and we'll see. And I can't leave the garden. I can't leave it half done. I have to pick a day where I could start and finish the whole thing, because I can't have deer in here in the dead of winter, or they'll eat these blackberries. They'll eat my blueberries. They'll eat my. You know what I mean? They'll just get at stuff, and they'll eat the branches off the apple trees. They'll just go to town in here. So I don't know if I'm going to get it done before the winter, but that's the big plan in terms of you know, changing the garden configuration, right? So just to look at it from above here, hopefully it's not too windy for this, right? The plan is to remove the fence right there and add posts and go all the way around the whole cultivated area. And that area where the cold frames are, I'll have beds going perpendicular to them in line with the beds over here. So I'll gain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll gain 5 more 5 4x6 beds, whereas right now I've got 3 2x6 beds. So I'll gain a lot more you know, cultivated space, put it that way, than I've got right now. So I think it's worth it, and I think it's just a better way to use the space, and I'll get more options, and yeah, and so on and so forth. So anyway, that's where we are. It's middle of December. It's December 13th, I think, as I record this today. December 13th, 14th, something like that. I may have said November earlier. It's December. It's around the middle of December. And yeah, I mean, things are basically shutting down here. We got a couple things hanging on out here, but really nothing growing. Just some kale that needs to be harvested. You know, I was out the other day when I came home from work and harvested some kale, and it shattered just like it had been dipped in liquid nitrogen. It's not that cold today, but it was probably like -9 or something like that on that day. So just to give you a sense of the range of the temperatures. And kale's an incredibly tough. This variety here, this winter boar kale, is very tough. So yeah, I'm a fan of it for sure. So anyway, hope that was interesting, and all that ramblings and musings were of some use. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. And until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.